Hey everyone, on my latest podcast, I sit down with one of the leading rare cannabinoid companies in the world who outlines to us the growth trajectory of this industry over the next 10 years, a multi-billion-dollar industry. From health and wellness to cosmetics to CBD and hemp companies, every household across the world is going to have a rare cannabinoid in their medicine cabinet. Why? Find out now in our latest podcast. What's going on, bro? Hey everyone, welcome to the Dales Report, and happy to have here on the podcast today. He's the Vice President of Sales at BayMedica, which is a subsidiary of InMed Pharmaceuticals, which trades on the Nasdaq under the ticker symbol INM. Jerry Griffin joins us. Jerry, good to have you on. Nice to meet you. I see you're in San Diego. We were talking off camera. Not a bad place to live, huh?
Yeah, best life decision ever made, Chad. Yeah, thanks for pointing
Was
that
it?
out. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I bet.
Can't
What's
beat
it
it this
rain?
time of
Maybe.
year any other year. And I think
What's it rain?
you've
Maybe.
had some experiences in San Diego yourself. Right
Oh
around this
God.
time of year on the 4th of July. Probably one
That
of the
is God.
probably one of the best places ever to celebrate 4th of July, especially a few years ago when you experienced
Oh, July 4th, 2006, probably the greatest day of my life. About
it.
1.2 million of my closest friends down on Mission Bay. And wow, was I ever introduced to life in California. And I can understand why people live there. But what a great time, great place. Almost like two cities in one. You got the downtown core, and then you got Surfer's Paradise down by the beach. So, and it only rains what, maybe 5 days out of the year?
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully a little bit more.
Maybe.
Hopefully a little bit more in the upcoming months and years if we're lucky. But
Yeah. Well, listen, we wanted to have you on. We've been speaking with obviously the CEO, Eric Adams, off and on for the course of the last 6 months. But we want to look and learn as we continue to have these conversations and learn more about the whole cannabinoid industry. You've been in the regulated cannabis industry and cannabinoid market for a while now. So let's forget about the markets and how they're performing and all that stuff. I want to focus on the industry itself and what you think is the growth trajectory for the industry, not only this year, but moving forward.
yeah, so I think there's a big disconnect between the capital markets and what's actually going on, boots on the ground in the industry. And
Okay.
from my perspective, in my experiences talking to customers, I mean, cannabis couldn't be more popular. There are sales are growing, right? In most cases,
Yep.
we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown that's spooking people, but nobody has to deal with the number of headwinds and obstacles that this industry has to deal with, and we're only a breath away from massive regulation change that's going to open things up, right? You got banking regulation that could change at any moment. You've got the removal of
Yep.
something like called 280E, which is kind of an IRS tax code that burdens these players. You've got interstate commerce is closed. You've got this state by state regulatory scheme. And look, from where I sit as an investor, I don't want to miss. One of these things could change on a dime, and it will open the whole thing up. Now, from the perspective of our business, BayMedica, as a subsidiary of InMed and cannabinoid manufacturing, and specifically rare cannabinoids, we feel strongly that the access to rare cannabinoids will blow this thing wide open because it's going to open up all of these
What makes you
additional.
believe that, Jerry?
Well, if you look at the, if you look, well, so let's start with the health and wellness space, right? Last year it was like a
Yep.
$1.5 trillion sector, right? And recently, 91% of cannabis consumers says they use cannabis for health and wellness purposes, right? And if you really peel the onion back on that, you're talking about two cannabinoids really being leveraged for, these health and wellness outcomes that these users are seeking. You've got
Yep.
140 other cannabinoids that have really tremendous potential. And we've selected some of those cannabinoids, THC-V, Delta-9 THC-V
Yep.
specifically, CBC, CBT, CBDV, that we believe have massive mass market potential. And we feel that it's going to give these cannabis companies, hemp companies, anybody playing in this cannabinoid health and wellness space, a lot more optionality around potential products and just blow this thing wide open. So that's where I view it,
Interesting.
right? It's this kind of untapped potential within the health and wellness space that cannabis is kind of scratching the surface, and they have the ability to really get more involved and blow this thing wide open.
Where do you see? Do you think multi-state operators, some of the bigger companies in the space, are really going to, like some of them already have, but do you think it continues to expand and they get more involved in the industry in the coming years?
In the industry, you mean getting more involved in health and wellness or getting more involved with rare cannabinoids?
Rare cannabinoids.
Yeah, so we talk to a lot of MSOs. We talk to a lot of large single state operators. A lot of them are looking at rare cannabinoids simply to make their existing products better. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
There's a company called Wild. It's got probably one of the largest cannabis based gummy products in the country, right? They went and they added CBG to that, right? That's not a cannabinoid that we make because it's not really a minor cannabinoid. There's a lot of it
Yeah.
available in the market, but what it's done is it's modulated their product to prevent this anxiety that people feel sometimes when they take THC products. And so if you can imagine how that changes the dynamic from a new user adoption perspective, right? There's a lot of people that don't want to touch these products for a number of reasons, but a lot of it's the experience. It doesn't really jive with them. But then here you come modulating that effect with CBG and eliminating that anxiety that a lot of people feel.
Right.
Boom.
Right.
You've accessed a lot more potential users. GTI, Canacraft, which is a very large California single state operator, Wana, big multi-state operator, Kronos. All of these guys are taking rare cannabinoids and putting them in their products to change the effects, to create a functional product, to define a specific experience. And they're all based on rare cannabinoids, and a lot of them involve Delta-9 THC-V. And oh, by the way, just to call it out, Kronos is doing this with cannabinoids derived through biosynthesis, which is what BayMedica does.
Do you think big pharma and CBG companies eventually in due time are going to enter the space as well? I would think.
Yeah, of course. Big pharma, big CPG, the big multinationals, absolutely. Right now, what's really preventing them from getting involved is regulatory clarity, right?
Yeah.
And supply chain, right? And just to touch on supply chain for a minute, right? These guys need access to high purity, consistent, highly pure, highly consistent, repeatable ingredients, right? That can be developed, like that can always be accessible, right? And right now that just doesn't exist in the cannabinoid space. You've got certainly a lot of access to things like CBD and THC, but when you look at rare cannabinoids, you know, they're represented in maybe 1%, sub 1% of the entire, the entire plant biomass. And when you think about, okay, cultivating that, right, and then extracting that, and then that very little amount of product that you get from that massive amount of biomass for this very small represented, molecule, and then you look at, oh, I could do this with fermentation or biosynthesis,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I can do that, at a massive scale, right? I can do that within a week or two. I can do it in one step. I can do it, in a way that, gives me the same product over and over. Now you really start seeing these guys step off the sidelines and want to get involved. So the supply chain has kind of been solved on the rare cannabinoids front. The regulatory challenges are also something that, needs to be given consideration.
Yes.
CBD currently is has a drug filing, right? Epidiolex, right? The GW pharmaceutical Epidiolex.
Yeah.
It's a CBD-based pharmaceutical. That product, by the FDA standard, can never go in food and beverage, right? So it's going to require congressional legislation to change that. So it's always going to have that burden. But now you start looking around at other cannabinoids that are not scheduled drugs like THC is, and they don't have that problem. So now you've solved for the supply chain, and you've created a product, and there's products available now that can be put into food and beverage, nutraceuticals, and the rest. There's a few things that need to be stepped through by BayMedica and also by the operators, which is making sure that these ingredients are safe, that the toxicology is done, that the efficacy studies are done, that stability studies are done, and also that they either step through what's called generally recognized as safe designation or new dietary ingredient designation, and that's something that BayMedica has every intention of doing to enable both the brands and the operators to use these, and also to satisfy the FDA compliance.
You've been with how long have you been with BayMedica for?
I joined BayMedica in February of this year.
So very attractive company for InMed, obviously the revenue that they were generating. What would you say, common questions, what people love about the company? There's a variety of different brands that we can get into a little bit later, but I'm trying to understand to my viewers and investors, like, what's the opportunity at hand? Why should they care? And just to get a better understanding of the overall growth trajectory that BayMedica obviously has developed and really created over the past couple of years. But this was an attractive buyout, obviously, for InMed when they brought the acquisition was made late last year. But when you're speaking to people, some of the highlights that you can share why you're impressed with this company and the direction that it's
Sure.
going towards.
Well, look, so I've been in and around biosynthesis, and I've been in and around biosynthesis of cannabinoids since early 2020.
Okay.
And so when I was presented with the opportunity to look elsewhere and to potentially join BayMedica, there was a lot of things that caught my attention. And just first and foremost, let me just kind of preface this with, InMed is a FDA drug development company. They have 2 CBN based drugs that they are currently taking through the FDA drug development process. BayMedica was acquired by them, and BayMedica is a manufacturer of cannabinoids through what some people call biosynthesis. I call it fermentation. Right. Others call it cellular agriculture or precision fermentation is another term. But what really attracted me is, first of all, the technology, right? Whatever you want to call it, I call it fermentation. And in our case, we're fermenting cannabinoids, right? And in my experience, going back to early 2020, and being on the plant side of this and also being on the biosynth side of this, it's just a much better option for accessing rare cannabinoids. And it's the only way to really satisfy the mass market potential for some of these rare cannabinoids that are very, very, very powerful. So let's start there, right? We're taking cells and we're turning them into factories. So it's super cool, right? And that also kind of satisfies me intellectually. To the untrained eye, this new tech may concern brands, may concern consumers, but there's a lot of examples of biosynth-derived products on the market today. And I can go through a few of them. Insulin, right? Used to be, basically procured from pigs, right? Very inhumane, right? They've now found a way to do that with biosynthesis. And all the insulin on the market today is derived through biosynthesis. Hyaluronic acid, very well-known personal care ingredient, used to be procured from rooster combs, right? Imagine how inhumane that is. Now it's all derived through biosynthesis. Citric acid, a lot of people think that this stuff comes from citrus. It doesn't. It's biosynthesized. Vanilla, right? Maybe 2,000 metric tons of the vanilla on the market is produced through plants. The other 30,000 metric tons is produced through biosynthesis. Stevia, nylons. Lululemon just did a tie-up with a biosynth company to produce these petrol-based nylons that are obviously, because they're petrol-based, are very unsustainable and very environmentally unfriendly. Unilever, palm oil, right? They just did a tie-up with a biosynth company around palm oil. Again, very unsustainable. So you've got biosynth being used to solve these problems, whether it be a sustainability issue, an environmental issue. You're impacting the indigenous communities by extracting this from their environment,
which is so important right now.
Totally. And in our case, you're basically you're solving a supply chain issue whereby you can't access these very powerful cannabinoids that are not very well represented in the plant in any meaningful amounts that would enable the common user to access them. So what that all leads to is this company that has this tech that provides this very clear benefit and provides this access. So all of those things, is kind of a great starting point. Then you look at their position in the market. And, BayMedica is a very unique pure play cannabinoid company. They're subsidiary of an FDA drug development company, right? They're doing R&D on cannabinoids, and they're also producing cannabinoids through this really, really, kind of cutting edge technology, but it's also very pervasive at the same time. And then look, on a personal level, like, this provides me an opportunity, pretty rare opportunity to combine kind of my 20 years of experience in sales and marketing, with the classic compounds that I find fascinating, and then also factor in this shift in health and wellness towards natural therapies that I think are incredibly important. So on all those levels, it's kind of how I look at this opportunity, and there's nobody out there. I mean, they've always been the guys to beat since I've joined this space back in 2020. They've continued to create separation. Some guys have gone kind of dark. Some guys have produced one product, and they're not doing it in any meaningful amount, or it's a product that the market really doesn't want. And here we come with 2, 3, 4 products, 3 of which
Right.
we've launched just this year. And I think we're just going to basically get to escape velocity, and everybody's going to be just far, far, far behind us in the rear view.
When I look at your current customer base, it looks to be obviously widespread. You have CBD hemp companies, cosmetic companies, nutraceutical companies. What particular market you think draws the most interest, and why? Or is it pretty much interest at all levels?
Yeah, look, I think it's the latter, right? I'm really excited about them all because I think in the future, cannabinoids are in every medicine cabinet. I think that they're in every pantry. I think they're in every purse. Health and wellness obviously intrigues me, right? It's a massive current opportunity in the trillions of dollars presently. And look, our body has a system that has evolved to work with this class of compounds, and we make those as a company, and we have the ability to support this mass market scale. Traditional food and beverage, including nutraceuticals, really excites me. Also, both from a near-term commercial opportunity perspective, but we do need to step through some things as a company to make sure that we're compliant with the FDA, and the FDA and the operators that buy our ingredients are compliant with the FDA. We will be stepping through those things really on behalf of the industry.
Yeah.
So we're going to be chasing those things I mentioned earlier, like generally recognized as safe or GRAS or NDI, and some of this toxicology and efficacy testing that will enable these folks in food and beverage, nutraceuticals, and the rest to put our ingredients into their products compliantly. Now,
So let's look.
lastly, I'll
Go ahead.
say, oh yeah, I was just going to say, longer term, what really, really, really gets me excited is this kind of advent of personal medicine, or personalized medicine. There's a massive amount of people that it will help. It has trillions of dollars in potential, the same way health and wellness is
Yeah.
already $1 trillion+ industry. And then, I think that in the future, there's going to be diagnostic tools that will evaluate this system that exists within everybody's body, this endocannabinoid system, and basically tell you, you're deficient in this. This is the outcome of not, taking care of that situation. You need to supplement with XYZ cannabinoid in order to create the homeostasis that doesn't create these horrible disease states that people experience today.
So let's talk about portfolio. You mentioned 4 products now in your portfolio. Most notably, earlier this month, you commenced sales in THC-V. Had Eric on earlier. Explain what the difference between THC-V and THC is.
The difference between THC-V and THC is a couple of carbon atoms, right?
Okay. And what's that mean?
If you look at the molecular structure of THC-V versus THC, they both have this tail off the back of them, right? So think of it looks like maybe like a cat, and it's got a tail off the back. Well, THCV's tail, I believe, THC's tail is a bit longer than THCV's tail by 2 carbon atoms, right? So it's a 5 carbon side chain versus a 3 carbon side chain. So that's what it looks like from a molecular level. What's really interesting about cannabinoids is that those subtle differences make a massive difference in the bioactivity and the physiological effect, right?
How so?
THC is a scheduled drug. Well,
right.
THC is a scheduled drug because it's very much intoxicating. THCV is not intoxicating. And they have completely different use cases when you look at it from a health and wellness perspective. If you just kind of take out the recreational side of it, right, and you just look at them on the basis of the primary research that's been done and the use cases and what have you, THCV does things that are totally different. And so, we're focused on non-intoxicating cannabinoids. THCV is a very powerful non-intoxicating cannabinoid, has a lot of mass market potential. And so that's the kind of the difference between those 2 molecules.
Who knows where we're going to be in 20 years from now, but it's just staggering the amount of research and breakthrough that we're continuing to make on all levels. So it's encouraging to say the least. One of the things that outlined, in your press release, the difference between Delta 9 and Delta 8 THC-V. I want to understand what that means. And as well, are there commercial advantages for D9 versus D8 THC-V?
Yeah, sure. So much like the THC to THC-V example, right? The difference between D8 and D9 THC-V is a very simple molecular structure difference, right? It's a 1 double bond that are basically inverted, right, on D8 it's over here, and on D9 it's over here. But to my point earlier, those subtle changes make all the difference when it comes to cannabinoids.
Okay.
What we're biosynthesizing and what we're creating is the real McCoy, right? D9 is what the plant produces. It's not D8. D9 is the type of THC-V that has been studied, and all of the value credited to THC-V is the D9 flavor. And so unfortunately, there's a lot of D8 on the market today because it's a lot easier to synthesize, and it's being all marketed as THC-V. But, that's an education issue that we need to solve for. But all of the stuff that THC-V has been studied for has all been the D9 version, and all of the use cases and all the things that I mentioned earlier, whether it be, primary research indicating helps with epilepsy, helps with diabetes, metabolic disorders, physical energy, and what have you. All of that is related to the D9 THC-V. And oh, by the way, it's probably worth mentioning that we're in the process of putting together a human trial that we hope to launch within the next month, and we should have the data back from it in, say, the fall, that effectively at least directionally proves out some of these reputational use cases. Right? We don't want to sit here and say, we've taken it through an FDA process and clinical trials, but this is a human trial with a large number of people directly meant to discern whether there is a physical energy use case, there is an appetite suppression use case, there is some of these other use cases that the primary research suggests is in play.
This has been fascinating. Good learning curve, to say the least. What I got from it is we're just scratching at the surface of the with the overall growth of this industry, right?
I would say so. I think right now we're just catching kind of what bubbles off the surface, right? And you can use whatever sports analogy that you want to use. We've heard them all in this space. It's early innings. It's we're still scrimmaging, and
I think what's important though, we've come a long way from the early days of CBD, because I think that's what obviously put a black eye on the industry for a while. But the way obviously the FDA has cleaned this up and the research that's being provided, it's just like in due time things start to get more sophisticated, and it's a lot different from where it was 3-4 years ago even.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A lot more research has been done. A lot more is understood about how these cannabinoids act on their own, how they interact with other cannabinoids. And, we're at the forefront of all of that. And we're looking to continue to contribute to that science and continue to demystify all of this and, put CBD in kind of the place with all the other cannabinoids. It's just a cannabinoid that has its own specific use cases. And, oh, by the way, there's all of these other ones that are just as powerful, if not more powerful, and, effectively, provide the information to the public that allows them to decide what they need.
InMed Pharmaceuticals trades on the Nasdaq under the ticker symbol INM. Jerry Griffin, VP of Sales at BayMedica, subsidiary of the company. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chad.
All right, thanks, Jerry. Let's keep in touch. Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, wait until you see what we have next. Some of the best thought leaders in the verticals that we cover, from cannabis and psychedelics to cryptos and NFTs and sports wagering. So if you want to learn more, make sure to click on that bell for all notifications. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.